Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
Preparation plays such a huge role in our impact. And I know, people hear the word preparation and they immediately kind of go numb and they go, I don't have time to prepare. Like, I don't have
Yeah,
time. Like, we're so busy
yeah,
that taking time to prepare, it just falls by the wayside.
it does. Whether it's preparing, planning, whatever you're thinking of, that's the main excuse that you hear. And what happens is failure happens oftentimes, and you're not sure why. Or worse, you're like, "Well, this always happens to me," and then you get this belief that you're just a failure. That's way worse. When really what it is you didn't have a good strategy ahead of time.
Hmm.
There's so many things that you can do before you're going to do something big or even something, relatively big that can set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
And that's something like you said that people just get into action. And if you're an action oriented person, that's awesome. You have a motor. You
Yeah.
go, right? And I love people that are like that. But you also have to balance it with making sure that you're taking your action in the right direction. Because you can take a lot of action, then all of a sudden you wasted half a day because you didn't plan it out. I
Yeah.
remember years and years ago when I was a teenager working for my dad. He was really good at planning things out, and I always was like, why are we spending time figuring out where this goes and that goes? Uh, and then it hit me, it was like, oh, okay, because if we don't, we're going to have to redo all of this work
Yeah.
that we did, you know. And so I didn't appreciate the value of that until a little later.
Well, it's funny. So every month, Joyce and I make a cooking video, right?
Mhm.
Based on like a new recipe. And
Yeah,
when we first started doing it, it was funny because, we would just kind of pull up the recipe and hit record and just start, right?
yeah,
Which we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we would just start recording. And it took a really long time to do the video because, I need a measuring cup and I didn't know where it was and I couldn't find it. And like this was
yeah,
all taking up
right, yeah,
time,
yeah,
right? And at the end of that, I'd have like an hour long footage to edit and cut. Made some great
right,
blooper reels,
yeah.
but
I'm sure.
but it wasn't efficient,
Right.
So after a few, we started actually getting everything ready before we started recording,
Hmm.
and then the actual recording only took 15 minutes,
Right.
and it was less stressful and it was a lot
Right.
easier.
Yep.
And I think that applies in a lot of areas of our life where if we just take, that 10 to 15 minutes and prepare, right? I mean,
Right.
Scouts motto, right? Be
Yep.
prepared.
Yeah.
If we just prepare, it makes everything more efficient. It makes it easier and less frustrating.
Well, it certainly does, and I think that this time in in our lives, with technology, it's easy to you're old enough to remember maps and before there was GPS and when it first came out, and especially in a car, I remember getting a trip tip from AAA.
Yeah.
If I wanted to go on a trip, there was no such thing as GPS, and you had to plan out your trip because you never knew. And then all of a sudden, hopefully AAA was good with construction and they kind of knew where construction was and they could route you around. All of those things took preparation because you had to actually go physically to the place. It wasn't like you could order this online. You had to go to the place and get your trip tick. It was printed out, all of this. And we lost a little bit of that. Now, obviously, how it is now is way easier, and your GPS, if you have a good one, is going to reroute if there's traffic or whatever. So the preparation of a lot of things we do has been taken out, and we've lost that muscle to
Yeah.
prepare,
Yep.
right? And so we need to make sure that we don't do that with everything. Like technology is great. I'm not saying you don't use it because I love technology. However, you still need to learn the basics of other things too. And life your life isn't just going to work. You have to plan it out,
Yeah.
or somebody's going to plan it for you, like
Hmm.
your boss, you know,
Yep.
right? And so you want to make sure that you're going in the direction in your life that you really want to go.
Hmm.
And so we're going to go through the steps, and this isn't just for planning your life because that's a big thing. This is just planning a project. This is planning a trip. This is planning a vacation. Could be planning, whatever. So that that way, like I said before, you're setting yourself up for success, or at least greater success.
And and I think this all stems from something that at least I learned from martial arts, that I'm sure has been around and come through other iterations of things, but it's
Sure.
about proper preparation and planning, promoting peak performance, right?
Right.
The six
Yep.
P's,
Yep.
so getting into that, I think, and these are like when I tell people like these are important, these are things that like I've learned through martial arts, through business, through everything that I use
Yep.
today,
Yeah.
that really help me be more effective. And I'm sure I
Yep.
know you do too. So,
Yep.
getting into number one, which hugely important is anticipating obstacles before they happen.
Yeah.
Right. And when I talk to people about this, they go, "Well, isn't that pessimistic though? Like,
Right.
shouldn't we just assume it's all going to work out? And shouldn't we just
No.
well and you know what? The expectation should be this is going to work out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Things do work out, but they work out better, right? When we've kind of prepared ourselves and
Yeah.
gotten ready for those objections.
I think this is probably something that people that are positive and have been trained to be positive, I think this is their weakness.
Yeah.
That exactly what you said. They think, well, that's pessimistic, so I want to put that out of your mind. It's all going to work out, but it's a balance. Like when I'm running a class, and when you're running a class, we have a class plan that I made up, right? How often do you have to change that class plan by just a little bit? The answer is probably every time,
Every time.
right? Now it's not a huge change, but it's a small little change. You have somebody different in class, or you have more people than you thought, or less people than you thought. Especially in the summer, our attendance fluctuates day to day and week to week. And so you have to adjust. And so if you didn't have a plan B for your class or a plan C and even a plan D sometimes, you're going to be caught off guard. And you're going to be working the plan and working the plan and it's not working because you didn't prepare for any obstacles or any changes in things. And that's why it's important that you sit down and think through and plan out what you need to do, but also plan out, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? And not in a negative way, but in I'm prepared way if it does happen.
That's exactly right. Because obstacles are going to happen. And
Yeah,
and this can be career focused. I
right.
mean, every good person, manager, HR executive, they don't just go into conversations cold. They go into conversations, prepared
Yep.
with what they're going to say. What if somebody says this? How am I going to handle if you want to be an effective communicator, it's great to think about the things that the other people are going to ask and say while you're deciding how you're going to say something. Yeah. But it can also go, as simple as, well, geez, like what if my alarm clock doesn't go off? Like,
Yeah.
if I have some things prepared and I don't wait until the 5 seconds late that I got up, my life's going to be easier. So
Right.
really in every aspect of your life, taking that little bit of time to say, well, what we don't focus on it and we don't, we don't worry about it, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's that fine line where if it's paralyzing you into inaction, it's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
What it should be doing is it should be fueling you and making you more confident to take the actions you need to take.
Yeah. Yep. And that's exactly what it does for me, right? So if I'm thinking of, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If that happens, I'm going to do that.
Right.
Now I'm confident if it does happen. Now, if it doesn't happen, great. Then I just stick with my original plan. But at least
Mhm.
I thought through, like I said, a plan B, a plan C, just in case. Usually you don't have to go past two different plans, plan C. If it's something big and something complex, maybe you have a plan D. Usually you don't have to go deeper than that. And if you do, then you have to look at your original plan. Is your
Yeah.
original plan really that thought through? So that's the way I tend to deal with things, and it definitely makes me have more confidence, when I'm working through it.
Yeah, 100%. Number two. So number two, I really like is don't get bogged down by perfectionism. –
Yeah.
and I see this all the time. I see people not start exercising because they can't commit to 3 days a week.
Right.
They go, well, if I can't do 3 days a week, I'm not going to do it at all. Or
Yep.
if I can't make time to write this book, in the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
it's not really worth. I don't have enough
Hmm.
time to do it.
Right.
Perfectionism kills so many goals and dreams.
It really does. And this is one of the things I had to really work on. And sometimes I still have to fight against it. And it's a balance because if you're working in a business, you want a quality business, you want people to be like, wow, this is top notch. So you have to have some perfectionism in you for that to happen. Otherwise, it's going to be haphazard.
Right.
However, I always like the term that we use when we're teaching our instructors is progress, not perfection. So when you're dealing with something new, whether it's new to you or new to your students, as long as you're making progress and moving and improving, that's good. Now, once the progress stops, then you have to push it along a little bit, right? But as
Yeah.
long as you're making progress, because the you don't want to be, like I said, bogged down with it because that can lead to inaction. I'm like you said, I'm not going to start because I just can't do 3 days a week. Or I want to start martial arts training, but I want to get in shape first.
Yeah.
That's like one of the funniest things I've ever heard
Mhm.
because this will literally get you in shape if you start it, you know.
Yeah.
So I think this could be a big one. For some people this is not a big deal, but I think for others this step two is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think the mantra, done is better than perfect,
Yeah,
goes a really long way because, realistically, you're not going to be perfect the first time you do anything.
right,
Like you're going to make mistakes. Your first class is going to be hard. Your first phone call is going to be hard.
right,
All those things are going to be, your first investment is probably going to be a train wreck. That's how we learn, so getting yourself to do it, if as
right.
long as you're prepared and you've kind of worked out what the potential obstacles are,
Hmm.
done is better than perfect. And then just working on what is that best next step.
Right.
What's that minimum thing I can do? If
Hmm.
I'm not feeling like going to the gym,
Right.
I'm going to at least get down
Yep.
there and do a little bit because then
Yep.
it's done. So I
Yeah.
think getting rid of perfectionism is really difficult,
Yep.
but it helps a ton.
Yeah, but I think like you mentioned, once you start taking action, you break down the steps. This is what I like
Yeah.
to accomplish this today or this week. Here's the 3 to 5 things that I want to get done. Now you're moving towards your goal, and that will help tremendously.
I love the example of like writing a book because some people they go, well, I don't know what to write, and I go, write a
Yeah,
title, make a
yeah,
title.
yeah,
Write 2 lines of the chamber or the table of contents. You know
yep,
what I mean? Like you don't have to sit down and spend 3 hours. You can
right,
sit down and spend 3 minutes,
right,
and that's progress. And like you said, progress is better. Progress first, right?
yep, yep, for sure. Now, no, number three, this is a an important one that we talked about in the beginning when we're setting this all up, and this is one thing that I think many people need work on. They don't know how to do it. They're not sure. And certainly they probably don't see the value in it. And that's scheduling your planning and preparation time. So actually scheduling it, I'm going to do it, and it's a non-negotiable time that I'm going to prepare. Now I like to the night before plan out my next day, and I'm gonna rough it in. This is what I'm going to do this half. This is what I'm going to do the middle. This is what I'm going to do at the end. And then in the morning, what I like to do is then I'm gonna fine tune it a little bit. Then I'm
Yeah.
gonna this is what then I'm gonna fill in some of the details. Now that that works for me. You got to figure out your planning time. For the week, I like to do it on Sunday night, the same thing that I rough out my week, and then Monday morning I fill in the details for the week. And then as the days go by, more details are filling in. But I also have flex time in there that I'm going to be able to. So if I can't get something done on Tuesday that I had planned, I can do it Thursday or I can do it Friday before the weekend. So you always have to have some flex time planned in there, especially things happen, right? I mean, we all know that things happen. And if you're too rigid with your planning, that I have to get this done, I have to do that done, um, not rigid with doing your planning because that should be rigid, but rigid in the plan itself. That can lead to you just not feeling like you did anything,
Yeah.
and disappointment. Right.
Yeah, and we've talked about. I mean, peak performance really doesn't start when you wake up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, like I think people have this vision of like, oh, I woke up, I did my morning routine. Like, it starts the night. It really does start the
Yeah.
night before. And the reason I say that is because we talk to so many people every day, who are living life day to day, and their goals become an afterthought. Their
Yep.
goals become something they get to when they're done serving all the other people in their life, their employer, their family, their
Right.
whatever. Um, it's I'll get to my fitness when I have time, when I'm done with this. I'll get to improving my relationship with my spouse when
Right.
we have time.
Yeah.
Going the night before and looking at the next day with a priority focus on the things that move the needle. You start with the big rocks. You start
Yep.
with this is what I'm doing for exercise, right? This is
Hmm.
what I'm doing here. And then as the day unfolds, we fill in the blanks as
Right.
needed,
Right.
right? That when someone says, hey, do you have 5 minutes to go do this? If you have flex time in your schedule, you can say, hey, no problem. I can do it later
Right.
today.
Yep.
If you don't, you say, no,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is so hard to do, but you say,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't, but
Yeah.
I'll get it on the schedule for the other day. So I think this is such a powerful move, especially for people who get into, which I know
Yep.
so many of us do, and I do from time to time. We just get into that mode of, you know, I'll get to it when there's time.
Right.
And there isn't. There never is.
Yeah. In the show notes, I'm going to include one of the podcasts we did a couple years ago, Bookend Your Days.
Mhm.
That was a really good podcast.
Yeah.
And if I remember it correctly, it was the end of the day, gratitude, write down a few things that you're grateful for, and then think about what you want to start in the next day. And then in the morning, you wake up, um, fine tune your action plan, but take action.
Yeah.
And that's roughly what it is. There's probably a lot more details than that, but that's pretty much what I do every day.
Mhm.
So I try to follow what we're teaching here. I try to do the best I can to follow it, because it works.
I know. Almost every day. It's
Yeah.
one of the, like
Yeah.
I really do think that all of these things, yeah, man, if you do them 4 out of 7, 5 out of
Yeah.
7,
Yeah.
you are gonna crush it. So
Right.
so with that, let's backtrack and we'll go through our
Okay.
action steps again. So this is prop like a pro. The
Yep.
secret to peak performance. Number one, anticipate obstacles before they happen. Read
Hmm.
all the directions first. See what's ahead, and then
Yep.
plan for those things that could go wrong.
Number two is don't get bogged down with perfection. So it's okay to aim for it, but make sure that you're thinking about progress and you're trying to make progress with you or the people around you every day.
And number three, schedule your planning and prep. Peak performance starts the night before. So make that plan with a focus on those things that are really going to move the needle on those big rocks. So that way, when you go into the next day, it's more effective and you have a better impact. And that achieves this episode. That is this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.